Now we go live to London, where Jonathan Sacerdoti, our correspondent, is standing by up there. Jonathan, thanks for joining us here. I'd like to ask you about perhaps the European perspective on what's taking place now, specifically in the UK. What can you tell us? What are people reading? What are people thinking about the conflict here right now?
Well, so far we've had a statement from our Prime Minister here in the UK, David Cameron, which was very supportive yesterday evening, saying that he staunchly supported Israel's right to self-defense and that he condemned in no uncertain terms the barrage of rockets that Hamas has rained upon Israel. The press, on the other hand, has been somewhat different, and as ever, it's been a really mixed bag here of coverage. It depends what you read. If you read The Guardian, you'll, as usual, read plenty of coverage that condemns Israel and its actions, has little sympathy with how it undertakes its defense projects. But if you read other newspapers like The Telegraph, there have been very favorable articles, including one asking why the world and the UN don't condemn rocket attacks on Israel. And similarly, the BBC, the nation's main public service broadcaster, has been rather mixed, starting out with quite a favourable coverage in terms of Israel, rather sympathetic to the needs of Israel to defend itself against the huge increase in rockets. But over time, as ever in these sorts of operations, with images coming out of Gaza which show suffering of the Palestinian people, the coverage is slightly shifting, and there's more of a sympathy now for those who are casualties of the war in Gaza, and that's understandable to some respect as well.
Well, Jonathan, you've been covering this for a while. You've been covering the Middle East for a while there. Are you seeing anything different now in the public perception than in past flare-ups, past rounds of conflict here?
I don't think so. In fact, I think the situation is that whenever there's a flare-up in Israel, it's covered much in the same way here. And that would seem rather odd to somebody who does know the Middle East well and who does follow these sorts of conflicts, because it is rather like they're describing a completely different war sometimes. They resort to all sorts of stock phrases, especially on the BBC, referring to Hamas constantly as a sworn enemy of Israel, using phrases that I've heard over and over this afternoon about Ban Ki-moon carrying out speed-dial diplomacy. And these sort of stock phrases are what they seem to fall behind when they don't really have any deep analysis of the actual issues. So there are all sorts of details that aren't heard of very much here, which, if you follow the news closely, of course, in the region, add a certain element to the story that give you a better understanding of why Israel behaves a certain way, why the Palestinians behave a certain way, whether it be Mahmoud Abbas or whether it be Hamas acting in Gaza. And I think that also the news agenda has moved on slightly here, which is to say that we have other stories which are leading the news reports, and this really isn't at the top of the agenda at all. It wasn't even item 2, 3 or 4, I think, in the BBC 8 o'clock news just some moments ago. We have public sector strikes here, with many people on strike over their pay. We have a story about a plot to blow up the Eiffel Tower by Muslim extremists, and all sorts of other stories, including an expulsion of a German intelligence agent in Germany for suspected spying. So this has really fallen down the news agenda for the moment. Obviously, should there be any major developments, it will move back up again, and then we'll be able to see just how sympathetic the coverage is.
Well, thank you for that report. Jonathan Sacerdoti standing by in London.